So the agenda today is that I'd like to just review the team agreements that we made at the very beginning. Some of the language was changed. Thank you all so much for your invaluable input. And then moving right along to the tasks that we set for you last week, and a little bit of a discussion around what you feel might be important for us in further sessions. And then I'd like to move right into an overview, kind of a short overview of what's coming down the path, because I think that even though what we're trying to do really is just get our members launched, it's important for us to know what the layout is, what the structure is of the road ahead, because I think having that little bit of a GPS is really, really helpful when we are letting people know what's coming, because it's not like a manual where you can flip through to the very end and see what all the tasks are. So let's start with our Pathways team agreements. You'll notice that I've got the chat up here, so please feel free to use the chat, especially you, Pamela, and then maybe you and I together could work a little bit, maybe through the week, on trying to get your audio up. Okay, so punctuality, we want to get online punctual, respect each other's time. We're certainly going to do that today. Technology sometimes interferes with that. So we all have to be a little bit flexible around it, but I have a real mandate to respect each other's time, and I just want to share with you a little experience that I had at a convention that I've been at the last few weeks. I was a room host for one of the speakers. These are dental speakers. It was a dental conference. And I introduced my host. He was to speak from 12:30 until 4. Or I'm sorry, from, yes, that's right, 12:30 to 4. At 12:30, he was still schmoozing with people in the audience and chatting them up, and as speakers do, and that's great. But at 12:30, he was supposed to start, and I stood at the lectern for 15 minutes while he schmoozed, trying to get his attention that it was time to start. Finally, he noticed I was there, and he said, "Oh, I guess I'm being told that it's time to start." I introduced him. He gave his presentation, and at 8 minutes to 4, he said, "Am I supposed to be speaking till 4 or 4:30?" And I said, 4. You've got 8 minutes. And he said, "Oh, well, I guess I'm going to go late then." And he spoke until 4:25. And I thought, wow, first of all, this guy's not a Toastmaster. And secondly, there were people in that room who really wanted to get on with their day and get on to the next thing, and he was not respectful of that. So we will try to be as respectful as we possibly can with your time, especially on a bright sunny day. Courage. Courage to speak up if there's something people are uncertain about, and others may share your questions too. So be aware that this is collaborative. Yes?
Sorry to interrupt everyone.
Yes.
This is Liang here. It looks like my baby needs my attention, so I have to leave today's meeting. Sorry about that. I'll join you guys next time.
Liang, you come back if everything is good, and otherwise we'll have a recording for you.
Okay. Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Good.
See you, Liang.
Yes, courage to speak up if there's something people are uncertain about, and courage to say, I have to not be here right now. We certainly understand.
I see we have somebody else online, a 604 number, an audio thing. I don't know what that means. It's when you...
Somebody has dialed in by telephone.
Oh.
Whoever that is, if you could use the chat area or just tell us what your name is and who you are, that would be really helpful. Marlene.
Oh, it's Marlene.
Marlene. I can't hear you, Marlene. And now I'm seeing video. So you must be on your computer as well, but all I'm seeing is the top of your head and a window. So you need to move your computer a little bit so that we can see your face. There you go.
Hey,
Hi.
Marlene.
Sorry, I didn't pay attention to daylight savings time.
Oh, we thought that might be the case for a few.
Hi, Marlene.
Hi.
Hi.
I even had a timer set for the wrong time.
Never mind. You're
Hello?
here with us now. You're here with us now.
Okay.
Hi.
Oh, and we've got somebody else by phone.
Hi. This is my name is Sarah. Tim has invited me to the meeting. I called in before, but for some reason I don't think you guys could hear me.
No, we
So
couldn't hear you.
Yes, I hung up, dialed in again, and seems
That's
to be
great.
working now.
That's great. And Sarah, are you also online?
I am not online. I am just calling in.
Just calling in. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So we're
You're
just
talking
going
about
through.
the Zoom meeting link that's on the.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I
So
can try
give it
to
a
find
try.
it.
Otherwise, welcome and glad you could make it even just by phone.
Okay.
So we're just talking about team agreements, and the first one is that, and by the way, I have sent this out to our original core group. I don't have the emails for anybody that joined since last week. So if Tim, if you've got a couple of emails addresses for me, I did send out an email this morning with some documents attached to it to the core group, but I will need the new the email addresses of anybody that's new.
Okay, I can provide Sarah. She's online right now, but I can provide her email address. I have it.
Okay, that's fine. You don't have to do it this minute.
Okay.
Just sometime after the meeting, that would be great. And the documents that I've sent out, you don't necessarily need for today, but I thought that I would send them out so that you have them as reference. So punctuality, courage, positivity, to be positive and proactive in learning to overcome the challenges Pathways program poses. So what we're trying to do here is just change the conversation around Pathways. And I think that that's one of the most useful and powerful tools that we can have as Pathways Learning Group leaders is to introduce a new narrative to the clubs, because there has been a lot of frustration and negativity, as you know. And so I think one of our main tasks for this group is to change that conversation. And so to be positive and very, very proactive about it, because here's the thing, Pathways isn't going to go anywhere. It's going to evolve just as the entire education program with Toastmasters has always evolved, as we learned last week, right from a no booklet to a single booklet to what we left in legacy to go on to Pathways with. So it's not going to go anywhere, and negative attitude and conversation isn't actually going to help anybody. And I think that that's what we're all here to do, is help. And to be respectful, to respect each other's perspectives, and recognize that we're all in Pathways at a slightly different level, and that we all have a different way of looking at Pathways. And so just be respectful and actually celebrate that diversity. Does anybody have any comments to make about our team agreements here?
I like this one a lot better than the first one I got.
I guess some of the language in the first one was, you know, maybe a little bit off the cuff, and I think the intent was there, but perhaps the language was just a little bit more short. Was that your experience, Marlene?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So is everybody in agreement that these are the guidelines that we're going to operate in?
Yep.
Agreed.
Terrific. Okay, so I'm going to leave that up on the board for now, but I think we'll move right on to our homework. Hopefully some of you are able to share a few stats around if you went back to your clubs and how many members you've got and how many of those members are in Pathways. And then just a sort of general idea of, your sense of how many of those people are struggling a little bit. James?
I wasn't able to bring it up in the last meeting because we had a all speech night. It was kind of like the non-contest contest because we weren't sending anybody off island this year. So basically there wasn't an opportunity to do that. And usually at the end of every meeting, we have an opportunity to actually talk about things. So I will do that tomorrow.
Okay. Okay. And Marlene?
We have 15 members, but only 12 of them are really active, and half of those have actually even looked at pathways, and all of those are frustrated.
All of them are frustrated.
Yeah.
Wow. And which club is that?
Sioux Harbor Toastmasters.
Souk. Okay. Wow. Okay. And did you get a sense from them about some of the details of what their frustrations are?
Just trying to understand even the lineage of when you go here, you're going to get to there and go there and go there, and it just bops all over, and there's multiple ways of getting to the same thing, which sometimes it's not intuitive for anybody that I've talked to.
Okay, so you're talking specifically about the navigation within the site.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about the content and the actual
Some of them can't get to the content. They find it so difficult.
Okay.
And
I bet it's that stumbling block. That stumbling block we talked about last time. The very first experience you have is that you click on something that doesn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Or it doesn't get you where you think it's going to take you, and you can't sort of just intuitively figure out what the next step is.
Right. Okay. Okay, and Sarah, you weren't here with us last week, but just to fill you in, we just thought that we would take a very informal poll of some of our clubs and get a sense of who's struggling and who's not.
I'm struggling, yes. I'm actually printing my my projects rather than relying on any of the website. I'm not going through the progress set by the website. I just looked up how to print the entire project and doing it that way, because at least then everything's in one place.
Okay, did you try the website, or did you go right to printing it?
I had to try the website because the printing instructions weren't very easy to find either. So yeah, I tried it with my very first one with the icebreaker. But
Okay.
It wasn't easy to use, and I found that I was getting so frustrated by the process of navigating it that I wasn't paying enough attention and focusing on the actual speech and what I'm supposed to be focusing on, the content. And yeah, so I decided that Pathways, that's a different project for later.
Okay. As far as your sense of your club and colleagues and members, fellow members, what's your sense in your club, and which club do you belong to? What's your sense about how others are feeling?
I think I'm in Tim's club, so Goldstream Toastmasters.
Yeah, I think I can answer that, Kristin.
Yeah.
I last week, no, Sarah wasn't there, and there's a 3-minute education every week, and I've dedicated my name in that time slot for the next little while. So I'm going to give them an update on our meetings, and I did exactly that last Monday.
Okay.
For the active members, everyone at least knows about Pathways. Everyone at least logged in. So for the active members, I can say that it's overwhelming majority that people know about Pathways and they know how to get them. At the same token, as Sarah said, it is a huge frustration on the navigation. That's the big key. One thing I try to stress is an actual 10-minute tutorial at the club level we are having challenges with the actual Wi-Fi. We don't have Wi-Fi in that room, so we're gonna have to figure that one out.
Okay.
And yeah, my goal is to actually go through the website periodically.
Yes.
Do we not have the Shaw Open option at our meeting location, Tim?
We do, yeah, we do, Sarah, but we need a password, and if Dustin doesn't show up, then we can't get in.
Okay, Tim, do you mind if I give you a little bit of feedback on that right now?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I had the same experience. I thought that if I sat down, I think I mentioned this last week, if I sat down with the whole club and I just linked my laptop up to the Wi-Fi in the room and put it up on the screen and showed everybody the navigation, that it would work. Sadly, as soon as I hooked it up to the projector, it went into the mobile version, which is just not as good. And so what I opted to do instead is small pathways gatherings at my house.
Oh,
And
okay.
so I have invited members 2 or 3 or 4 at a time to come over to my house. And I'm telling you, I thought this would be a really big process. And it turns out that you spend 10 or 15 minutes with a group of people and you're done and they're ready to go. They're ready to roll. So you've launched them. I just bring them in. I either ask them to bring their computer or I bring mine, and we log into their website, 2 or 3 of them, one after the other, sit down at the dining room table or at my desk. They log into their website. I show them how to get started, where everything is, and at least the icebreaker, and moving on from the icebreaker, how to complete the icebreaker, etc. And they're done. They've got the ball and they're running with it. So that might be one option, to have small gatherings, little tutorials. You could even do it in the club if you had Wi-Fi, rather than as an entire club. It's a good option.
Oh, that's really good. I'll consider that for sure.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
I think I've had at least 20 members of Arbutus Toastmasters in my house, not all at once, just 2 or 3 or even one at a time, but it gets them launched.
Absolutely, that's a great idea, and I'll offer it to the club tomorrow night.
Terrific. Terrific. And Pamela, thank you for your comments. Pamela says, I spoke with our VP Ed. We have 12 members and approximately 50% are on pathways. I'm on the agenda at our meeting this week to better understand where the individual barriers are. That's excellent, Pamela. Thank you so much. I was passed along some statistics from District 21 the other day around pathways and the adoption rate. And I changed them around a little bit. I'm not going to go into them in depth today, but I thought it would be interesting to share the actual spreadsheet with you, because they talk about adoption rate of members and then the adoption rate of new members. And I have flagged for the district the clubs where the adoption rate for new members is less than 100. Now, if you think about that for a minute, let's just say somebody's a new member within the last even 6 months.
Right.
What does, and they have not adopted pathways, what does that mean? What does it mean to you?
The adoption rate of new members?
If the adoption rate in a club of new members is less than 100%, what's happening?
They're struggling too.
Well, you can adopt pathways and still be struggling. If they have not adopted it, it means that they have not registered for a path. So what does that mean?
Same thing to me. Maybe something else, but that's what it seems to me.
That people are struggling.
They can't even initiate the program sufficiently to move ahead.
Yep, possibly. You know, that could be the source. That could be the reason why.
Mm-hmm.
What it tells me, and this is pretty scary, what it tells me is that of the new members, less than all of them are in any education program whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they have not adopted pathways, if they're not started in pathways, it means that they are new members and that they are not in any education program whatsoever, because our new members don't have an option.
Right, which they did have an option with the paper model, because they had something tangible as soon as they got their membership. Even if they didn't actually do the work right away, they could read the material. Again, they had something tangible, which once we go completely computer generated, they lose that. There's always pros and cons to everything. And I have one member who is technologically resistant, to say the least. So I'm having to print his materials off. So he's online, he's registered his path, he's moving forward, but I'm doing the work for him because he doesn't want a computer, he doesn't want an email address, but he wants to progress.
Okay, so he could actually order his entire path in print.
Yeah, I might have to suggest that to him once he's really getting going.
Yeah, so I think that extreme exists, but it's the exception to the rule. Usually, if we can get people started, and I think that you've really touched on a nerve here, and it goes right along with that idea that I said earlier, and last week, that if we can get them launched, we don't have to take them down the whole path. But if we can get people launched, get them started, get them signed up, have them have done their assessment, chosen their path, ordered their path, started their path, and at least done their icebreaker, then oftentimes my experience has certainly been that most will run with that ball. So it's getting them out of the starting gate. And if we have to do that in print, then so be it. Go ahead.
I think when I signed up for the pathways and chose a path, it actually said that some of the paths are not available in print; they're online only. So
that's correct.
May depend on the path the person is on.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. There are, I think, only 2 out of the 11 paths, or maybe 3, that aren't available in print. Certainly, there are enough in print that if somebody was in that extreme group, we could advise them to choose a path that was available in print. So, I think that we're all struggling with this concept that it's out there in cyberspace, and that there isn't a manual where we can put in somebody's hands and say, this is for you, this is your work. So we've got to be creative. I think we've got to be very positive and very creative, because once we get going in it, my realization was that the availability of slides, videos, tutorials, examples, hearing people speak, the actual curriculum content is richer because of all those added dimensions. It's richer than our manuals. It's richer than any manual could ever be. And so if we're struggling or people are struggling with the advent that it's not something you can hold in your hand, we need to then find a way to help them through that hurdle.
Well, from my perspective, there's 2 hurdles that they have to leap instantly to get anywhere. And that's a challenge, that there's got to be some way that there can be a presentation or something created that it's not so high of a hurdle for people. So first
how do you define the 2 hurdles?
The first one is there's less motivation when you don't have something in your hand, unless you're really, really, not just moderately, into the technology of it all. So anybody that's below high level technology has to self-motivate in a way they're not used to doing.
Okay.
Right? So even I'm decent on technology, but I spend too much time on the computer. So looking at the screen more is not encouraging to me. So there's that one. And there's the fact that it's not intuitive. It's very difficult to navigate. until you go through that learning curve leap, right? So you have two obstacles that each person has to deal with. There's no way you can just get into it. And one of our members is highly technologically adept, and he still gets frustrated with it. And he's been trying to teach our club. So there's barriers, not just obstacles. Like it's like trying to do a 9-foot hurdle before you even train to do a 2-foot one.
Do you feel that those hurdles are navigable?
Yeah, sure. Once you get past them, but people, when they're new to Toastmasters in particular, they're hopeful, but they don't know what they're going to get from Toastmasters.
Okay, so if I can just interrupt you, the message that I hear in that, if we're going to change the narrative, the message is you have to get through, you know, one message is that you have to jump through a 9-foot hurdle before you can get started.
Yep.
Or the conversation is there's a learning curve, and I can assure you that once you are through that learning curve, which I'm going to help you get through, that you are going to be on your way, and you're going to wonder why you were concerned. Do you hear the difference in the conversation? Like we have to, it's up to us to change that conversation. Does that make sense?
We have to get over that 9-foot hurdle first. And I'm not being negative. I'm trying to state the position. Like I'm helping these other people. I don't have time to work on my own.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Well, it's huge. And it's frustrating, right? So how do we get to that point where we're comfortable enough? I know that's what we're trying to do here, but you did ask why new people aren't on Pathways. And that's my view of why new people aren't on Pathways, just not why I'm personally having a problem with it.
Right. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is the old system has been phased out, right? So if we have a new member, they're not going to get the old CC manual and all that.
No.
I assume,
Sure.
and so in our club we have just recently a few new members, and they are going through the Pathways thing, but never before has mentoring been more important in this club. And the problem is, even with the old time members, is that if they don't get it, I mean, can you imagine if you can't understand the Pathways thing, it's even harder for you to help them get into it. And maybe we'll reach that threshold point where, especially with younger people coming on board, that it will become more self-propelled. I'm getting that sense that because of this transition we're going through, it's less self-propelled now. We kind of need help.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. And I think the point is extremely valuable and well made, that if we haven't worked our way through, it's going to be difficult for us to help. However, I can say that even in the early stages, at the early levels of Pathways, when I was giving talks or mentoring people, I would say, I'm also learning. I'm learning, I'm moving my way through. What I can tell you is that the more I move through it, as the more I persevere and keep going, the faster I'm learning. And the more I'm starting to see patterns, and the easier it's becoming for me. So I think that message of hope is really important for us, particularly with the ones that are struggling. I think that if we can say, I don't know it all, I don't have all the answers, I'm not an expert, I'm learning as well. However, I am finding it easier and easier. And that certainly has been my experience. Marlene, just as you are, I would consider myself moderately technically savvy. And I was frustrated at the very beginning, but I just kept going through, and I started to see patterns. And some of those patterns are what I'm going to share with you today. And when we can start to see a system or patterns, we start to get a better sense of where we are, particularly when it's not tangible and we can't hold it in our hand. Yeah. Okay, so I am going to I'm going to share the District 21 stats with you. I'll get when I get off the meeting, and it just I think that although our district is actually one of the higher, we're leading the districts as far as adoption of pathways. I think that we still have a ways to go. And I think that what this spreadsheet will tell you is that in your endeavors here, you are absolutely not alone, and that your function as a Pathways Learning Group is so valuable and so timely that I just want to commend you all for taking the bull by the horns, so to speak, and finding a way to help, because I think the more we do this, the stronger we're all going to be. Okay, so did everybody have a chance to, I heard from one about possible topics for future sessions. Has everybody had a little bit of a chance to think about that?
Just the navigation, that's key.
Still navigation.
Still navigation.
Okay. Okay, well, you know, I think that the nucleus of the idea that we all came up with yesterday of something that we can put in people's hands that will get them out of that starting gate. And it might be right from logging into the Toastmasters website, a step-by-step instruction, logging them into the site, getting them through that assessment, choosing their path, ordering their path, starting their path, and maybe we even print out the icebreaker piece, evaluation sheets, etc. Maybe we go with them through the navigation of the icebreaker, because that's the that's the project that has more navigation tips and tricks and tools in it, and photographs and things around navigation, than any of the other projects. So I think taking people by the hand and walking them through right through to their first project in level 1 may be the way to go. So we can.
That's a good idea. And actually, Peter Scott did a PowerPoint. Sorry, I'm trying to get more comfortable, for our club, to help the club better just understand the whole concept of pathways.
Would you be willing to share that with me?
When I get it from Peter, but he's out of the country right now.
Okay, because that may be something that we can build on, and maybe one of our projects is that together we create a PowerPoint that maybe takes it even to the next level, that we can share with our clubs, etc., that help them.
Well, we have a couple of project managers, and so they want the visual, right? They created sort of graphs and things that create a better impression or a longer memory impression through graphics.
You know, Marlene, I think that you've touched on something really important here. You know, and this is just something to think about maybe for our future sessions. I know that as a facilitator, a meeting facilitator, it's important to me that I try to reach all the different learning groups, different learning styles, kinesthetic and visual and auditory.
Right.
And so maybe we can create a product that is both written and visual. We can find something, even if the nucleus is a PowerPoint. Not everybody wants to see a PowerPoint, but we may be able to think in terms of how would we make a PowerPoint slide that we could then use in a printed handout or booklet that would get people started and through to the finish of their icebreaker, or even their first level. Sort of a how-to.
That would give them a tangible that they could start with.
Yeah, and we could give it to new members, and it would be a step-by-step guide where with little boxes they could check off saying, you know, do this, do this, do this, so that we are giving them a tangible product that has a visual quality to it and might direct them to PowerPoints or videos or whatever on the.
We don't really have that right now, do we? We don't really. And what I'm almost imagining, like when you buy electronic stuff, they have something called a quick start guide. And maybe what we need is like a one-page PDF that you can either hand it to them or email it to them as a new member, and it points out the pitfalls of logging in, so you can get through that.
There is a quick start guide.
Okay.
TI has put out a quick start guide, but my
But it doesn't
experience.
point out the problems. Doesn't point out the problems that you experienced.
No, and it doesn't. It doesn't point out the obstacles or the hurdles. It doesn't point out how to get over them. It doesn't take you right through to level 1. So there's this quick start guide that gives you a little bit. I've made a quick start guide that just lets people know how to log into the TI site and get their password. But I think that a product that incorporates all those things and the things that Marlene was talking about and Pamela, I think might be the way we go here.
Yeah.
Might be our legacy. Okay, it's 22 the hour, and so I would like to just right now take us on a little tiptoe through the tulips and take us through a little infographic that I created. Now, I just have to figure out how to get full screen here. How do I get full screen on a PDF?
You'll be able to click the square box top right.
This one here?
Yeah.
Oh, you brilliant lady. Okay, so this is a slightly updated version of one that I have sent out, and I've emailed this all to you all. So what this does is give you an overview of pathways, and I always look for patterns. That's the way I learn. That's the way I understand things. So I started to see some patterns, and there's a lot of projects there's a lot of language around projects and levels and that kind of thing within pathways. And I wanted everybody to be able to visually understand that language. So I'm just going to walk you through this. First of all, in every path, there are 5 levels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Every level has a theme, and it doesn't matter which path you're on. Level 1 is all about mastering fundamentals. All of the projects in level 1 are about fundamentals. All of the projects in level 2s are learning styles, whether it's styles of leadership, styles of communication, whatever it may happen to be, it's about learning styles. Every project. Every project in level 3 is about building on that and increasing your knowledge. So it's learning a skill base. It's learning tangible skills. So every project that you do is around learning skills and increasing knowledge. Level 4 builds on what you've already learned and expands it. So every project in every level 4, no matter which path you're on, is around building your skills. And in every path, level 5 is always about being able to demonstrate what you learned. So there's a lot of doing in level 5. A lot of work, all of the projects focus around being able to take the skills that you've learned so far and demonstrate that you know them. And this doesn't matter which path you're on. Okay? So that's helpful for people to understand that every chunk of a path has got a theme to it, and there's a purpose to it. It's not just climbing a ladder and getting to the top. There's a specific theme around each path, or each project, each level, sorry. Okay, now the entire path, doesn't matter which one you're on, the entire path has got 14 projects. Every one of our paths so far, and there are now 11, every one of them has got 14 projects. So if you look here, you'll say every path has 5 levels and a total of 14 projects. This is also a consistent pattern. 10 of those are required projects. I see I've got an extra S in there. And 4 are elective projects. So I have put little diamond shapes beside each of the projects. You'll see that the black ones are actually the required projects and the red ones are elective. So I'd like you just to take a minute and count all the diamonds.
10.
I got 14. If you include the red,
Yes?
is it 14?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's 14 if you add the red together
Yeah.
with the black.
Yeah. So 10 are required for our elective. The red ones are the electives. And you will see no matter which path you're on, there are 3 in level 1. No matter which path you're on, there are 3 in level 2. 2 of them are about your leadership style, and one of them is introduction to mentoring. Okay. In level 3, you have got 1 required project and 2 electives, and this is true for every path. It's the same for every path. There's 1 required project and 2 electives. Now, depending on your path, the menu of electives is going to be different. There are and there's an entire menu of about 60 or 65 elective projects. So if you are doing dynamic leadership, when you get to level 3, you'll find that you have to do 2 elective projects. Do you get to choose from that entire menu of 65? No. There might be 14 or 15 or 20 that you choose from, and they're all geared around leadership. So they are all electives, but there is a select menu of electives according to your path. Is everybody with me so far?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
you got questions? No questions so far? Okay, good. Okay, now, before you can finish level 3 and go on to the next level, there are 3 roles that you have to fill. And Pathways and Toastmasters International, bless their heart, this information is nowhere. It is written nowhere until you get to the point where you're finishing a level 3 and moving on to level 4. And this is a good thing to let people know, that when you are actually doing the completion forms for level 3, it says, oh, by the way, you have to also have done this before we can move on. That's the only place you will ever find this information.
God.
And this information is that until you finish your level 3 work, and you must have fulfilled the club roles of Toastmaster, Table Topics Master, General Evaluator, and have done a speech evaluation, which of course you're going to have done over here anyway. So you have to have completed those 3 roles, and there is a place in Basecamp you'll see within your profile where there is a place where you can write down, fill in the roles that you've completed in a meeting and the date that you did them. So it's important to keep track of your roles. And I have actually created a little sheet that you can use individually to write down when you did what in your club. And I'll pass that along to you if you feel that it would be useful to you. Do you think that would be a useful thing to have?
We record that in Easy Speak.
Absolutely.
Yes, Easy Speak will do that all for you. Yeah. Now,
Well, the person who enters the stuff in Easy Speak does it all for you. It doesn't do it automatically.
But it keeps a record, does it not?
As long as somebody inputs it, yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think that it because we don't have CL manuals anymore, I think it's really important for individuals to take responsibility of tracking when they did what. The place in Basecamp where you write down your roles is not, it doesn't give you historical information. It doesn't retain information. So if I'm a Toastmaster tomorrow night at Arbutus Toastmasters, I will go in and fill in my Basecamp profile. I will fill in that on March the 12th, 11th, I was Toastmaster. But if I'm Toastmaster at a different club the following week and I go back into my Basecamp profile, then I'm replacing March 11th with the new date, and March 11th is not retained. So you can write down what your Basecamp profile will retain is the last time you did that role, as long as you've entered it.
You only have to put it in once anyway to prove it to the program, right?
That's correct. That's right. So all you're doing is writing the information in so that your VP Ed, when they are verifying that you've completed all the requirements of level 3 before they submit it, they can go in and easily see that you have fulfilled that role on that date. But I like to know what I did when. And so I have a sheet for myself that I fill out. And I think it's a really good idea for every Toastmaster to do that, because it's kind of nice to fill up that sheet and know when you've taken on certain roles and what you haven't done for a long time. So I will share that with all of you today, okay? That sheet, and then you can make it your own. I'm working on a project right now that I'm going to do almost, I think, as a high performance leadership project that creates what I'm going to call a club role bingo. It's a sheet that every member in the club can have, and they actually put a bingo dauber on when they've completed a role, so that it's going to be designed so that you can't get bingo until you've filled every role. So I will share that with all of you if it ever becomes a real thing. Okay, so we've got some things that we have to do for level 3. Then we move on to level 4, and you'll see that there is 1 required project and a minimum of 1 elective. And again, that elective you choose from a limited menu, and the menu is designed to fit whatever path it is that you're working on. And then by the time we get to level 5, you'll see we've got 1 required project, a minimum of 1 elective, and another required that is reflect on your path. And that reflect on your path is the finishing project of every single path. Every single level 5 for every one of our paths has this project to finish. And where our HPLs come in is that when we get up into these levels here, some of the projects that would fill the HPL kind of a format where you had you needed to be a leader of a team, and you had a guidance committee, that kind of thing. Those have become choices of one of your electives. You could do an HPL, high performance leadership.
Okay.
So that's the HPL, or the high performance leadership project in the legacy program, was a single standalone project that you did in order to achieve your DTM. Now it's become an elective. So as you move through the higher levels, level 4 and level 5, it becomes something that you may choose to do.
But you have to do 1, so it's a required elective.
You have to do 1 elective. It doesn't have to be a high performance leadership. High performance leadership is just one of the menu choices.
Okay.
Okay, is that clear? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so where we see another pattern, another couple of patterns, is that every single of these 14 projects have something in common. And one of them is that within every project, there's a before and after assess your skills survey. And some of you have probably experienced that. Some of you who've done your icebreaker or your speech evaluation and finished some of the level 1s and 2 and 3 kinds of projects have seen this before, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the deal. You can't move on until you do that before and that after. You cannot move on until you've done the before and the after. So where I hear a lot of people struggling with the technology is they're saying, I did my speeches I did my icebreaker, I gave my speech, I've got my evaluation, and it's not letting me move on. And so that's the trigger.
Don't they get a prompt? Aren't they prompted to do that part so they can move on?
Not only if you move through the curriculum from one end right to the other. So what I'm seeing is happening is this. People are going in and they're moving through the curriculum. They open up, let's say they open up the icebreaker. They look at all the videos, they read all the good stuff in there around nerves and structuring speeches and all those kinds of things that they need to know before they give their icebreaker. And then the last page of the curriculum is assess your skills after you've finished. Well, you haven't finished yet. You haven't given your speech. So you close out of Toastmasters, right? Or you close out of Pathways and you go to your club and you give your speech. Now you've got your speech and your evaluation. You're done, right? Now you can open level 2, right? No, you have to open up that icebreaker project. You have to finish that quiz. You have to do the after part of that quiz, and then you can move on. And you can't move on to the next level until you have hit the completed button and your VP Ed has actually, they've actually not authorized, but confirmed that you have done that project. And then level 2 or the next project opens up.
How
Now
do they know, or how do the VP Ed, when they're logged in and their status is VP Ed, they will get that information and they have to approve it?
They'll get the information online that the Toastmaster has gone through the curriculum and completed their before and after quiz. That they've actually completed the online portion of the work. The rest is just like it always has been in Legacy, that the VP Ed has to face-to-face confirm with a Toastmaster that they've finished their work, that they did their work. It's like looking at the back of your CL and seeing that there's,
and they sign off on it.
They sign
off on it. Yeah, so there's a bit of an honor system here. So the VP Ed's job is much the same in that they have to go to that Toastmaster and say, I wasn't there at that meeting. I understand you did your icebreaker. Is that correct? And so because Icebreaker Project 1 is the kind of the launches the path, it's the only one where you have to go through every single of the steps methodically in order to open up the rest of your path. Because you can't even look at level 2 until you've finished level 1. And I think it was designed that way. Well, I know it was designed to ensure that the information that is available to you in level 1 or in the icebreaker has been absorbed and acknowledged and looked at and gone through and checked off. Once the icebreaker has been confirmed, the rest of the path opens up and you start to get a better sense of what's on the road ahead. But I can tell you, and this is important information too, particularly if we're just trying to launch people through their level 1, it does not matter which path you are on. This information right here, these projects are the same structure in every path. Project 1, 2, and 3 are the same in every path. And for those of you who have not been through the entire level 1, it's this: the icebreaker and all of the information about structure, nerves, how to deliver a speech, everything that comes with the curriculum is Project 1. That is Project 1. And it includes 1 speech. Number 2, speech, evaluate. This project, again, the same in every path, is that you give a 5 to 7 minute speech. You have it evaluated. Your evaluator gives you some tangible areas of improvement. You give the speech again, hopefully the same one, because that's the easiest way to benchmark your learning. Give the speech again, implementing the feedback that you were given. So if you don't have the same evaluator the second time you give the speech, it's important that you let your evaluator know that you are working on these 3 areas. You want to move less or shift, pace less, you want to pause more, and you want your speech to have a better structure. Because that's what your evaluator, that was the feedback that they gave you the first time you spoke in this project. And so those are the 3 tangible areas that you're going to be working on when you deliver it the second time. Then to finish off the project, you, and again, the curriculum is quite extensive on how to evaluate a speech. Now you have to evaluate somebody else's speech. And here's the piece that a lot of people miss out. It's important for your learning that your evaluation at the end of this project gets evaluated. So what a lot of clubs have done is when that person is actually giving an evaluation, they also assign a member of the club to evaluate the evaluator. Now, I just want to stop here for a minute, because you think about a Toastmaster going through a CC manual. They've got 10 speeches. Those 10 speeches have 10 pretty solid fundamentals. I've done 9 CCs, so I'm a big stickler on fundamentals. I know the value of them. However, here we have, let's imagine it's a brand new Toastmaster, and they're in level 1, and they've done their first 2 projects. Now they've learned how to give an icebreaker, how to control their nerves, how to structure their speech, how to practice it. Then they've given their first speech. Then they have given a speech where they're focusing intently on the evaluation that's given back to them, knowing that they have to implement it. It's not just get the evaluation, go home and feel warm and fuzzy. It's, wow, I have to take this and I actually have to use it in my next speech, and I have to give that speech again. So I'm going to change it. I'm going to modify it to incorporate this valuable feedback that I've got. That's rubber. That's where the rubber meets the road, you guys. That's fabulous. We didn't see that in the legacy program. So now that person has to give a speech again using that evaluation, and now they evaluate a speech. So they not only know a little bit about what it feels like to be evaluated, but now they've also had some pretty solid instruction on how to evaluate. That was missing from the legacy program. And they've only done 2 projects now, and they've got all this fabulous experience and information. That's pretty rock solid. That's pretty good stuff, don't you think?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%.
Yeah. Okay, and then the very last project in level 1, and again, all the paths, same thing, is where you give a speech on something that you know a little bit about, that you've got experience with, that you've researched in the past, or something that you are simply interested in that you want to research. So this is a little bit more of a technical kind of a speech. It doesn't have to be, but it shows that you have to do the work to actually do a little bit of research, maybe include some statistics and some numbers, maybe show how something is evolving or changing. So you have to do a little background work before you can write a speech. You can't just write a speech on what I did last summer. So, it requires a little bit more background work. So that's another wonderful skill. So by the time people have just finished level 1, they've got quite a good solid little toolkit in order to move on to learning what their styles are and moving on to building up their skills. Okay, so is there anything new here for anybody? Did you learn something new just looking at this little infographic?
Mostly just more obstacles to be aware of, unfortunately. And
what
then
obstacles do you see, Mara?
Well, the one that you mentioned, that it does, until you try and complete level 3, it doesn't even let you know that you're going to have to record that you have to be Toastmaster, Table Topics Master, General Evaluator. So there's nothing.
Okay, you know what? That's minor. That's minor.
Well, it's minor, but you asked me what I learned from this.
Okay.
So that's one of the things I learned from this. I
Okay.
learned also that it's kind of what I suspected all along, that this program is more advanced in a sense than the books were, the legacy program were. And it's especially beneficial for people who are already Toastmasters members and or joined for a driven purpose.
Ah,
It
that's a
kind
good
of
point.
leaves behind the more timid learners, because it's a leap. To me, it's a leap from the beginning parts of the CC manual to start this. There's some people who, without, like you say, that mentoring is almost crucial with this program, where it was beneficial with the other one, but not as crucial. People could move forward at their own pace a little easier, especially the timid ones.
In my club, there were people who couldn't remember who their original mentors were in the old system.
Yeah. Here's what I see with this is that when I think about sort of moving through a CC manual, particularly if, James, like you say, we either have very weak mentors or the mentorship program is a little bit loosey-goosey, we can kind of skim through the CC manual. And Marlene, you make a great point that some people are a little more timid when they're getting started. And unfortunately, those fundamentals in the CC manual are so crucial that skimming through them, you know, you almost, for those learners, they almost should do a 2 CCs, you know, because you can skim through without really fully absorbing those fundamentals. Whereas in this program, what I see is that there's traction immediately. So you need to engage. You can't skim over the surface. You learn things, even if it's by osmosis. You are going to learn more. Maybe you aren't going to move through as fast, but you're going to have better traction. And when you've got better traction, you can start revving up to speed a little bit stronger. So it's you know, there's a lot of flexibility in level 1 around what your speech topic is. But I think that the traction is stronger and deeper, and the learning is a little more solid and sticky than in the CC. Because I think I did my first CC manual all in, like, I didn't go from 1 to 10. I think I started at 5 or 1 and moved to 5 and 4, and I did it all over the place. It wasn't until I did it the second time that I really feel that I started to learn the fundamentals. So I think that was the idea here. And again, you know, I think it goes back to we're a little late here, so I'm going to let everybody go soon. But I think it goes back to the idea that people came to Toastmasters for something, and we have an obligation to give it to them. Okay, so everybody's got this overview. I'd love you just over the next week to have a good solid look at it. And I'm going to share a few things with you, but if you feel that you would like to share this with your club members and help them to understand the patterns and the path ahead, please feel free. It's yours to share as you see fit.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm definitely going to do that in my 3-minute to 5-minute time slot tomorrow. Yeah, I booked myself to do these on a regular basis. And I think once it's fresh in the mind, to, as you said, gain traction, everyone's starting to realize they get a little bit out of it, get the frustration level lower. I can see it working if the members engage. There's always that point, well, look, I'm coming here and I'm just going to do my speech and I'm going to be better. That's the attitude that some people take. Not that that's bad, but sometimes they want to, they're not as proactive as some of us are. They just wanted to, you give me the information and I'll absorb it.
Yeah.
It's rare, but I can appreciate this, and it's absolutely a definite tool to help people grow. I agree.
Excellent. Thank you, Tim. And Marlene, I would just like to reassure you that your input about the technical obstacles being a frustration is loud and clear, and I hear you. And I think that that's going to help us all focus on what direction we take and how we can help people get over those obstacles and send the message that yes, there are obstacles. Are they insurmountable? Absolutely not. And we're here to help you get through those obstacles and understand it so that we can, you can just take that ball and you can just run.
Yeah, I get that. And that's what we're going to have to do. I'm wondering what Toastmasters is doing about clearing up the obstacles and improving the program.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that they are probably going to be working fairly diligently moving forward to improve the program as they always have. However, this is a standalone program. This structure was not designed by Toastmasters.
Oh, okay.
They're using a platform that is used for other learning groups, and they have adopted it to Toastmasters. So it wasn't written and designed by Toastmasters International.
Even that's good information, actually. That answers some questions that we've had, actually, and one of our more technically advanced people have had.
Oh, great. Okay. Well,
but the Pathways program, like I said, separate the website experience that we have when we're doing it, but the way it's been redesigned, the whole Toastmasters experience, the Pathways thing. I'm assuming that that's, and I've asked this question of our executive, is how many years did it take for them to plan this whole thing, and did they ever test it? Did they ever 5 years? Okay, and then you wonder how many thousands of people were tested to get the kinks out.
Well, it was beta tested 3 years ago, and I was involved in the beta testing.
Oh.
I did a whole project without fully understanding where I was. I actually ended up doing a level 4 or 5 project elective within Pathways. So it was beta tested all over the world. And so, it will always evolve. There will be some bugs worked out, but the ones that are inherent in the structure of the program, I think that we're going to have to learn workarounds and lots of education in order to help. And I can tell you that as a Pathways guide, I had weekly webinars where they walked us through sections of the program so that we could understand not only the content, but the navigation as well. And so I think it's going to take time and it's going to take education. But the more that we can help turn some of these 9-foot hurdles into 1-foot hurdles, the easier we're going to be able to keep people moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I think that the people that are coming in as new members now, they have mentors that are trying to help them with the Pathways thing, and it's a little difficult because they're coming in cold. But I can imagine that the people who are joining up as members now under this new system, when they become the mentors of the future, that's when we know we've gotten over that horizon.
Yes. And I'd just like to leave you with this note. I know that it feels like 99% of us are struggling, but I have to say that Arbutus Toastmasters did it wasn't an open house actually, they did a full day event where they invited the public, and they had 10 members give all 10 pieces of the Better Speakers series as a day-long offering. And they got 5 new members out of the deal, one of whom had never even heard of Toastmasters before. So she came to a meeting on March the 4th, and she joined. And so she was signed up immediately. By the next meeting, I guess that was late February. By the next meeting early in March, I asked her how she was doing and whether or not she managed to get signed up. She said, I've logged into Toastmasters. I got my password. I did the little Pathways assessment and figured out my path. I ordered it. I downloaded it. I've opened it. I've set up my profile in Basecamp, and I am going to give my icebreaker next week. So, and this is a woman who's in her 40s, and she's not particularly tech savvy, but this is how far she got in 7 days. So I would just like to say that there's not everybody who's struggling, and that the struggles are insurmountable, and that's our job, to help them get through those struggles. Okay?
There's a lot of self-motivation required as well, and that can be the challenge in its own right.
Well, yes, and I think that as we join our members up, and we let them know, that I think the days are long gone where you can just join Toastmasters for the coffee and the cookies, and make it your weekly social event. I think that it wants to be and is an educational system, and is trying to fix the fact that in the legacy program, as I said to you before, 17% of the Toastmaster members were actually learning. They were actually moving through the educational program. So I think anything that we can do to change that, all the better. Okay. Thank you so much for everybody for giving up an hour on Sunny Sunday, even though it was a late hour.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll see you next week.
Looking forward to next week.
And if you have very specific navigation issues or anything that you would like to go through next week, we should all think about exactly.
I'm losing your sound, Kristin.
You're losing my sound?
There you
Is
go.
that better?
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Sorry, I've got a dog on my lap, and the wire got kicked.
Multitasking.
Yes, this is my puppy.
Oh.
Cute.
Okay, so yes, please send me some ideas and suggestions about exactly how you'd like to spend your time next Sunday, okay?
Okay.
Okay,
Cool.
Enjoy the sunshine.
Take care, you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Marlene. Bye,
Bye-bye.
Sarah.
See you guys.
See you
Tim,
again.
Pamela, Marlene.